Hi everybody, this is Angelique with the movie summary from our Happily Ever After movie night where we played Hitch featuring Will Smith and Eva Mendes. And Will Smith plays a dating doctor called Alex Hitchens, and Eva Mendes plays a woman, a journalist, a gossip journalist called Sarah. So we had three questions for the group, and the first question was around the psychology of the men who actually work with these dating coaches. And of all the types of coaching that you could get, why would you actually work with a dating coach? So the second question was, when you work with a dating coach, when is it time to stop listening to the dating coach? Because there's actually a moment in the movie where that happens. And the third question was, do women fall for men who work with these dating coaches? And so to go to the first question, what is happening in the psychology of men who see dating coaches? And this is, of course, nothing, this is just very generic observation by the group. Um, they were talking about the keywords that was in the experience of men who were considering going to dating coaches or who would pay for a dating coach. And the keywords were struggle, fear, strategy, and emotional turmoil. And struggle was around seeing other people in relationships and themselves not being in relationships. That was an example. Fear around, will I actually find the right person? Strategy around taking action and being responsible to actually, change their relationship status or their chances with women. And emotional turmoil is probably around the track record, around their dating history. Um, so the group that analyzed this question said that men who went to dating coaches were very, very highly motivated because they were either in pain, so they would do whatever it takes, or they wanted the strategy because they were actually in love. And so, actually, in the movie Hitch, most of the men were actually seriously in love with these women, and they just needed Hitch to actually make this woman, fall in love with them. And so there are a few amazing lines in Hitch, and few of us saw the movie for like the third or the fourth time, and actually, because we had the intention to watch together and to analyze it, I think several of us had like new insights, and actually, because we heard certain sentences that we might not have heard before, it put the whole movie in a new perspective. To be honest, for me, it was a very, very enlightening, experience to watch it. There was actually so much depth in some of the sentences of Hitch. So, so when you look at strategy again, men who go to dating coaches, in the movie they were really in love, and so people are actually buying results when they go with Hitch because Hitch could guarantee you um, actually coming into a position where you could sweep her off her feet. So yeah, so the strategy was also about the dating coach being able to provide a map, a roadmap, so that you go from where you are to where you want to be. So the money, paying the money to a dating coach also meant that you were committed, and that the commitment was actually in the first place to themselves. And it was about a commitment to believe in themselves and to be happier with themselves in terms of the person that they were becoming. And of course, the dating coach was also providing a role model. And some of us then said that actually society has completely changed in terms of dating and marriage and relationships. And so even our parents, for instance, are people that would normally be, let's say, role models. They weren't able to actually tell us, you know, what relationships are supposed to be like nowadays, especially when you're single or when you're serious about a relationship. So, so um, some of us ask the question, how realistic is it that a man like um, Mr. Brenneman, I believe, the client of Hitch, that he would actually get a girl like Allegra, who was like a millionaire, heiress. And so, how likely is it that an accountant would, that was, as, let's say, dorky as Mr. Brenneman, that he would be able to hire a dating coach and get the type of results that he would get. And I think some people made the really great comment that it wasn't about tips and tricks. It was about Mr. Brenneman, Albert, sorry, was his name, that he learned how to connect with himself, and that because he connected with himself, he could connect with Allegra, and um, so I think other people noticed that actually Alex Hitchens and Sarah um, were actually very, very guarded, although they seem so cool and they seem to be so beautiful and gorgeous and so confident. Both of them were actually really guarded. And actually, to be honest, that was, I totally missed that. I think the first times I saw the movie, that actually Sarah was actually very, very guarded. I mean, um, if you think that Alex was guarded, I mean, Sarah was even more guarded, and it actually took him a lot of guts to sweep her off her feet. So, and so in my group, we had John Morgan, and John, taught me a lot when we were discussing this movie. It was very enjoyable to be in a group with him and to hear his perspective, because he said that Albert was not who he was because he was out of integrity. And out of integrity meant that although his heart and soul was desiring Allegra, there was an incongruence in him that disallowed him to actually express this natural desire for her, and until, of course, he met Hitch, who coached him. So yeah, so that was very beautiful for me, a realization that when we are not in integrity with our desire, that we then set up all these masks and all these ways of being that actually are to protect us. And in that sense, there wasn't actually a real difference between Albert Brenneman and Allegra and, for instance, Hitch, who supposedly had it all together. So when we look at the second question is, when is it time to stop listening to a dating coach or any person, any advisor or coach that you work with? And the group that analyzed this said that it all comes down to free will. And of course, in the movie it was quite hilarious because Alex was really, coaching Albert, what to do, what not to do. And of course, we were like all going mad again, watching that dance scene. The dancing was just so funny. It was just like one of those typical moments where somebody thinks he's cool and other people think it's not cool. So there was a huge discrepancy between, what somebody thinks is really, really like sexy, and somebody thinks, oh no, this is just, please stop doing that. And I don't know whether you remember, but in the movie, Albert was doing a dance where he was actually doing the Q-tip. Yeah, I mean, sorry. Hello. So yeah, definitely. You should watch that scene again. It's like he was actually dancing, saying Q-tip, Q-tip. It was just hilarious. But yeah, I didn't even like. I don't think it even registered the first time. But now that I watched it again, it was really funny. So so when in the critical moment, of course, in the movie, Albert was given the choice to listen to Alex Hitchens or to actually follow his heart. And as you may remember, um, Alex Hitchens was actually very much still coming from his old wound, where he had this strategy to actually give up or to actually walk away when things don't work out the way that he wants it to. And so there was a bit of pride coming in. And so yeah, so in my opinion, relationships will always hit, either a rock or something that will make waves. And as a dating coach, if you then advise your clients at that moment to give up, then of course, the question is whether you are, walking the talk, or whether you are actually being hindered by your own wounds. And in my perception, that is what happened with Alex. He was, at the moment that everything went sour, and Allegra, didn't return the phone calls of Albert, his own wounds started kicking in also because he started, having the problems with Sarah, and they're all interrelated. And so, yeah, so I mean, so the whole test was around Alex being able to make that decision that even though a relationship, might test you, and especially women or the feminine might test you, that he was going to be who he was. He was going to be in integrity with who he was, and that was, being a true lover, being a true, enlightened warrior, fighting for his woman or pursuing his woman, even when she says no, even when she tests him, even when she pushes him away. And so, in my strategic intervention coaching training, that is definitely what I've been taught, which is that, to my, own discontent, that actually the feminine tests men, and we test men in a way that isn't really enjoyable for men. If men are not in their masculine energy, they will not be able to hold it, and they will actually be, scared by it, or they will actually be demotivated by it, or uh, what is it? Really be resentful about it. However, when the masculine, or in this instance, Albert and Hitch, actually step up into their full integrity of having the courage to stick to their love, and to stick to their, I cannot be rejected, because, you know, my whole heart, my whole being wants to be with you. If they just, express that, and I mean, especially the last scenes are very beautiful, where Alex just, doesn't stop, although, Sarah's in the car with another, amazingly beautiful man. He just, goes so far where he actually even, makes himself look ridiculous, but he doesn't care. And, so at that moment, he wins her heart, So, yeah, there's a lesson there about the masculine and the feminine, I would say. So, what did Albert do when he stopped listening to Alex Hitchens? So, I think the group that analyzed this question, they said that his spirit or his essence took over, and his spirit came out at that moment, and Hitch was actually just a catalyst for it. So Hitch actually was, as the dating coach, a reference point, but actually everything that happened with Albert, it was already in there, it was already within him. And why did he have to pay Alex to actually, bring that out? He needed that trigger, and he needed he needed somebody to act as a catalyst, but he had to do everything himself, and it came out of himself. It wasn't planted in there, it wasn't artificial. Everything that came out was him. So, so the coach or a mentor is actually acting as a reference point, and and at the moment that so there, you can actually see that in the beginning, Albert wasn't in integrity with himself because he wasn't expressing, his desire towards Allegra, and then as he progresses and he becomes more and more himself, there is a moment where when the teacher or the coach teaches him something, he actually has to actively rebel against it. And I believe there's even a myth. I think it's probably Parzival. The Parzival myth. There is actually a part of the story where the young fool has to actually actively not listen to the teacher because he has to find his own voice. So there is a very archetypal core essence in that story, which is, you can never really grow when you always listen to the teacher. There is one moment when you actually have to step away from the teachings of the teacher, and you need to live your own truth. And so, yeah, so I was just reminded of that myth. I believe it's Parzival. And so I was in the group that was asking the question, um, do women actually fall for men who actually go to these dating coaches to, let's say, revamp themselves or to be more in integrity with themselves? And so we had a very beautiful discussion. I was very, very, fortunate to be with two men who had done work or who had, really thought about these things. And so it's very, very fortunate. And so our discussion was around that in the beginning of the movie, all these men that had not been working with Alex Hitchens, they were actually really, very, very, let's say, unaware of who they truly were. And you could see it in the way that they presented themselves. They were just very, they showed lack of confidence. They didn't show any self-belief. And of course, you can say a lot of things about, persona, mask, and personality. But these men clearly needed some kind of guidance or coaching to draw out of them what was already in them. And there is a scene where Albert had already hired Alex, and I think there was a scene in the boardroom where Allegra was, as the boss of her fund, was listening to this whole long board table with all these advisors, and she was saying, I'm thinking about investing in a fashion designer. And there were like these, like a group of 8 or 10 men in gray suits saying, are you sure that's a good idea? We don't know whether that's a good idea. And then actually, Albert stepping up and just defending her decision because she is not a teenager girl. It is her money, and she should know how to deal with it. And that moment was a moment of victory. And, so it was a moment of victory because he was true to himself for the first time. And so I think, Albert Hitchens would have said, Alex Hitchens would have said, I'm here to create opportunities. And we absolutely love that sentence. Dating coaches or, people who, who are in this, the transformation business, they are there to help you create opportunities that maybe were always there, but you would not have, acted upon it. So the big realization for me, I think, was that when you work with a coach, you are actually, you go through a certain transformation about really revealing who you really are. Because I think none of us would say that a coach could actually turn you into somebody you're not. They're just there to reveal to you who you already are. And I think all of us unanimously agreed that if Albert had not had the guidance, or even the the smart ass advice of Alex Hitchens, he would never have stood up in that boardroom as he did, confronting these, chairmen and board directors that were advising Allegra how to invest her money. And if he had not worked with Alex Hitchens, he would never have taken a step, and he would have never caught her attention. She would have never said, "Give me a call so that we can discuss it." And they would have never met, and he would have always been this man who had this crush on this woman who was apparently, in his own mind, out of his reach. So, yeah. So, I think, for me, the the last part of the movie was so beautiful, because I could really, for this time, because we were the group, I could really feel that, Alex was so moved by his student, and or his client. So in that sense, there was a big similarity between this movie Hitch and Don Juan DeMarco, where almost, the wise man becomes the you know you know becomes the apprentice. It's almost like, any moment the teacher can become the student. And so there's this huge you know um, unconscious dynamic happening there. And what was really beautiful, I think, was to see that, he really had to stretch himself. Alex Hitchens had to stretch himself to become that man that he probably could not have been if he had not met, the overly romantic Albert Brenneman. And I saw a similarity between Albert Brenneman and Don Juan DeMarco, meaning that the idealist lover in Don Juan DeMarco wouldn't give up on love. I mean, his heart was broken, and all these things happened in reality, but still he hung on to the idealism and the purity of love, in all its beauty. And I think Albert did that too in this movie. So although he was, rejected, and he could have, gone into his cave and cry, or be really disappointed or disillusioned, he actually decided to really, just almost feel the pain, and say things like, "I would rather, if the pain connects me with this woman, then that is what I want." And that is, of course, a crazy type of romanticism, but we've all been there, definitely. I surely have. So, yeah, I mean, the romanticism of the person that is in love, or the person that loves, it is, I think it is actually, probably, it has more wisdom in a way than our realistic cynicism and skepticism. And so that is where I think, the meeting with Albert, the idealist, romantic, the fool in love, could transform and touch Alex Hitchens. So Alex was very fortunate to have met a crazy fool in love that could teach him about, you know, his own um, his own ability to love, and to fall in love, and to love no matter what. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure next month we'll have a very interesting other movie that I'll be able to review. And I have a few other movie reviews I would like to make videos of, and I hope you'll be there as well. Feel free to, comment and join us on our Facebook group, and also on my website, anjitsang.com. Thank you. Bye bye.